Hello athletes, Travis from GTS Rowing here. We're going to do a quick video today talking about my favorite row erg accessory, that is the Concept 2 slides. And we're going to be talking just about how to very quickly get them set up, get them calibrated so that you can use them at their most efficient. It's not very complicated. I see people make it more complicated, so we're going to break it down real quick. So first thing you do, once you get these on the ground, is just kind of stand behind, give it a rough eyeball. That you want these things to be roughly in line parallel, like you would want some train tracks. Once you've got it in this position, you can place your erg on the slide. Now you can place the erg with the back or front either here or there. Generally, if you just got one set of slides, you can set it in the back on the outside. If you're setting up multiple ergs, you're gonna wanna set on the inside slides. You can set the outside erg if you're setting them up in tandem. The end, beginning or last erg can be set on the outside, but it actually doesn't matter, all right? And what I'm gonna show you is gonna kind of demonstrate how it doesn't matter. So you're gonna get that erg set up just like so. Do try to make sure that it's even and centered in the slides. Any kind of shift to the left or right is gonna cause an angle in your motion, and that angle could put force on the wheels here that's going to kind of push into this steel frame. It'll cause it to wear out sooner than it needs to. But right now, I've gone on the outside on each side because I'm only doing one. And the next step is the easy one, all right? So all we got to do to keep those separated at the right amount is push the erg all the way to the end. And it should be touching the end of both ergs at the same time. Push it the other way, you should do the same. If it's not, so let's say we were too close with the slides here. When you push forward, you just kind of slide it until it catches both. And now you know that they're the right place. So if you go to the far end of either one or the other, that it's going to catch that end. Once you have that, you know you've got the right spacing. And how I said before is it doesn't matter whether you're on the outside or inside, same thing's gonna happen. If I pick this up and move it to the inside slide, it's just going to mean that these slides need to be farther apart, so that when I push it all the way to the end, I'm going to push to there and back, same thing, but we still have the proper separation. No measuring needed. All right, your next step is to hop on the machine and take some strokes to see if it's balanced. For the most part, you're going to want to attempt to get your slides on even ground. The even left or right is way more important than the even front to back, because the front to back can be easily fixed. But if it is uneven left to right, it's very easy just to shim the slides themselves so that the slides are level even if the ground under them isn't. So once you want to get on, you just want to take some strokes and make sure you're not hitting either the front or the back. Now, if you are hitting the front or back, it could be two things. It could be your technique, it could be the leveling of the ground. Technique, there's a lot of things that go into that. Usually, for the most part, unless you're making egregious errors, you shouldn't be having any issues. Obviously, if you roll on slides regularly just fine, there's not any situation where you're gonna hop on some and suddenly they don't work because of your technique. It's going to have something to do with the leveling of the ground. Now when you're rowing, if you do find that those slides are favoring one end of the range or another, let's say you're taking your strokes and you're always getting really close to the side closest to you, and you're never really reaching the side farthest away, then that's going to indicate that there is some not level ground under you, but it's not so much that it's going to cause an immediate issue. It might start to cause an issue as you start to shift rates and move along. However, that's very easy to fix. So in this case, the erg does tend to be favoring the bow side of these slides. So all you got to do is get something nice and thin. I've got these half-kilo plates here that I'm using. A lot of times I'll just use my flip-flops because I usually wear flip-flops when I go row, and I can just stuff those under one end. But figure out one end that you're favoring. So we're favoring the bow side of these slides. So you can put a little shim on the bow side of either this slide or that slide, it doesn't matter. All you're doing is creating a little bit of a force going away from the preference. All right, so I'm gonna slide this under. And under the other, and then you can hop back up, and depending on how bad the angle is, you can just adjust how many. I would rather do 2 short shims on that one, rather than a big shim on just one and no shims on the other. And you can play with it how you want. Obviously, the flatter ground you can get, the less shims you need, the better. But if you can't do that, the shimming will work just fine. All right, so right now we've shimmed it up on the bow side or the back. As I'm rowing, I find that the slides aren't favoring the bow side quite as much, and they're a little bit equal in terms of how far they reach to the front or to the back of that slide. So I know I'm in a good position. And then before any time you've not been on the slides, you've walked away, you've taken a break, you come back a different day for a workout, especially if you have a lot of people in and out of your gym, which might be bumping into your slides, I would recommend every time before you get on the slides, just shoot over to the back, just give a little squat, and kind of make sure that you're in line and that the tracks of those slides look like the tracks of a train, all right? So that you want them perfectly parallel. If you have them off parallel, what it's gonna do is it's just gonna create wear and tear on the slides because you have wheels here at the bottom that run along the track. If there's any force that's pushing those wheels in or out, it's just gonna push it into the steel. It's gonna wear your equipment. It's gonna be a problem. And so while they might function, even if they're not perfectly in line, they are gonna create wear that you don't wanna deal with. And the good thing about these is that as long as you're not wearing down the steel, which is possible if you're misaligned, really the only thing you gotta replace from time to time is this rubber that the wheels slide on, and then the bungees here that keep the holders in place. Now, fun trick, you don't actually need the bungees to use a slide. You could clip those bungees and use it, and as long as everything is balanced and level, it's pretty much gonna do what it's supposed to do. But those bungees help facilitate that a little bit easier, so I don't recommend doing that unless you have some reason where you just snap the bungee and you have to have that, or you have to get your workout in before you replace it. The good thing about these bungees is that they're super cheap. Probably shipping is gonna cost more than the bungees themselves to replace it. But if you're using it properly, it's gonna take quite a long time to replace those bungees. If you do happen to need to store your slides vertically along the wall when they're not in use, that is gonna wear out the bungees. I don't recommend it unless you're really desperate for space. But if you are desperate for space and you have to store them like that for any extended period of time, replacing a bungee here or there, it's super cheap. Otherwise, I would just say store them sideways on the ground, store them with the slide part facing away from the wall so that when you lean it, it's leaned up against the rubber feet on the ends and not leaning on the metal slide there. And that'll be the best way to store your slides. But that's the easy way to go. If you are hooking up in tandem, all you gotta do is, like I said, you just put the erg on the inside foot. So I would put the back one here. Put it in, recalibrate, reseparate. So I'm gonna have to slide it back again, bring it to the end. I'm gonna move these ergs out of the way. So the slides are separated. We're gonna get it again, push it to where we're at the end and that they're equidistant. Go back, make sure that they're parallel, all right, so that you haven't created any angle while you've been moving them around. And then put your other slide back. So you see now we have two slides connected, same thing, bring them back to the end, make sure it's flush with each. This one we can move up just a touch, make sure they're parallel, and you're good to go. And you can keep tossing ergs on, following that same principle. Obviously, the more ergs you put on, the more important it's going to be to keep them level. But you can just keep shimming as you need to. It's just gonna be harder to identify once you have a lot of people rowing and you're hitting one end of whether it is a level issue or a technique issue. all right? But do what you can. So final point here again, when you are putting it on the slides, do try to keep it centered, all right? You don't want it to be off to one side or another. You want it to be right there in the middle. You can look at the back here and make sure that the bungee is centered on the erg. It's another way to do it rather than just trying to eyeball each end. Same thing on the other slide. Fortunately, the front is equal to the length of the slide itself. So all you got to do is make sure one side is flush there and you're good to go. So this is just going to help ensure that you're minimizing the wear on the machine by keeping it level and making sure that there's no force pushing the wheels of that track into the metal and create some wear. But that's it. Hope this helped you guys. Check out GTS Rowing for more tips, remote coaching, consulting, anything you guys might need. But have fun rowing out there and definitely enjoy the slides. They are my favorite rowing accessory, kind of creating the rowing stroke and moving it to a passive recovery rather than an active recovery, which is what you're gonna find on the water. Passive being that the erg is coming to you, just like the boat would come to you on the water. Whereas if you're active recovery, so like a standard row erg, no slides, you are actually moving your body weight forward, which is not what you do in the boat. All right, but that's it. Travis signing off. Thanks for watching, guys. Hope it helps. Bye.